Good morning. Hi there. How are you all? I can see you all here. Let me figure out if I can see the chat. I can see Brenda and Canala Crochet. Hi there. Nice to see you. I am going to just open the chat in another window as well so I can see you all. New window. Right. There we go. That's better. I can see everyone's chat now. There we go. Welcome. Hi. It's nice to see you here on a Friday morning. And it's nice to see you here on a Friday morning in lockdown. So much has happened this week that I almost forgot this morning that on Monday we had lockdown announced. Don't things just happen so quickly at the moment? Hi there, Young and Joe. It's 4:45 where you are. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us. Fabulous. Wow, that's quite a treat. First thing in the morning for knitting. And hi there, Michelle. So we're going to talk about all sorts of things this morning. I just thought I would come on here and share what I'm knitting and invite you to share what you're knitting as well. I can't invite anyone on screen. If you're part of the membership and you want to join the membership knit-alongs, knitter natters, then you can come on screen with me and share what you're knitting. But we can't do that here on YouTube. At some point, I might have to figure out some other software. I know there's software available to do that. But I have a few things on my needles. Currently, it's 2 actually, rather than a few. So I will show you those in a minute. Tell me what's on your needles. I want to see all in the comments. What are you knitting? Even if it's not in front of you and you're just waking up. I mean, it's 10:45. I mean, we're all just waking up, aren't we? Do tell me what's on your needles at the moment. I'd love to know. I'm going to have a sip of tea. It's so cold. I've just put my heater on down here. I'm sorry if you can hear that. That's a bit of a hum in the background, but it's cloudy and damp and horrible. It's January weather, isn't it? Come on, everyone. What's on your needles? It's 2 a.m. for you. Yanvi, what are you doing? Joe is still knitting a Jordan blanket. Oh, no. Your son broke your needles. I hope you can replace them, especially if they're your favourites. That's not easy, is it? I haven't had many needles break in my lifetime. It's the wooden or the bamboo ones that go, especially if they're thin. Oh, that's such a shame. I know at some point I had lovely bent metal needles. That was fun. And big, really, really old. I reckon they were from the 70s. Big, thick, red plastic needles. They snapped in half. They were really nice to knit with. Unusual for me. I wouldn't usually say that plastic needles are nice to knit with, but they snapped. Oh, dear. So Kankala is knitting a scarf. First knitting project ever. Yes. Fantastic. Michelle is knitting a double brim hat. Double brim hat. Fabulous. Nice and cozy. And Brenda's knitting a cozy sweater. We need that at the moment. I hope it will be finished for this winter. That's the thing, isn't it? You start knitting a sweater or a jumper and you think, will this be finished for me to wear, or will it be swimwear weather by the time I get it done? Jo says she's got spare needles, but they're not the best. Yes, he does owe you a birthday present. I know he does. Honestly, yeah, he's got to get himself around the UK online knitting shops online, and then you'll get your knitting present. Yes. He does owe you the tassel scarf hats as well. Oh dear. Oh, brilliant. Yanvi tried the bookmarks. That's good. By the way, if you're interested, I've just put bookmarks bookmarks on the shop. So there is a mystery knitting kit with the bookmarks. You get the bookmark patterns with a leaflet, with QR codes to the YouTube playlist and everything, and you get a mystery balls of yarn. You get 2 balls of yarn, and they're complete mystery. So you can knit up bookmarks to go in all of your hardback books around the house. I love using knitting bookmarks in my hardback books. I just love them. It's just that extra bit special thing that holds your place, and you know that you knitted it and it's there. I love it. Good. I'm glad that you've enjoyed knitting that. Okay, so what have I been knitting? Well, on my needles at the moment is this. I just designed that yesterday. Cuppa. A cuppa is a cup of tea. Yeah, that's very British. If you learn that language and you come to England, everyone will go, oh, you know what you're talking about, don't you? Yes. So it's a cuppa. It's a cup of tea. So I'm knitting that. This is something I designed yesterday. I just thought I'd do it. I got the squared grid out and just had a little play. So that's lots of diamonds there. I know, Jane, where are the biscuits? Oh my goodness. So this is going to go with this and create more of these. It makes me want to grow my hair. I don't think I will, but it just takes me back to that era when I had long curly hair down my back. And I had do you know in the UK we have kitchen rolls. We have big rolls of paper towels in the kitchen. I had one of those holders sat in my bedroom on my dressing table with scrunchies, basically just filling it up. All different fabrics. I never knitted any in that era. But I've now created this. Hi there, Cara. Yes, go and watch The Hooting Pirate if you want some planning ideas. Cara is brilliant at planning. And she's now growing her hair out. There you go. So lots of scrunchies. That has just entered the shop as well. That is that's the new kit in the shop. But I'm creating some fancy patterned ones as well. And those patterns will be in the shop soon as well. So yes, these are my needles at the moment. I'm just so excited. I love knitting small items to really build my creativity up. If you're getting bored and demotivated, especially this week, I have felt the need to just lift my spirits. I was watching the television this week. I literally put the news on to say, oh, I wonder if the second Georgia election has been decided. Because we're aware of it. And I thought, I want to find out what's going on. And suddenly there was this group outside the Capitol Hill building and it all went completely crazy. And I need something small to knit like this. I need something in my hands, something to see beauty and joy. This is actually a really small knit. It's a slow knit because I've got to be careful. I've got to take care of every stitch. I've got to switch between the colours. You can see how much stranding I'm doing at the back. And every single stitch is important because of the pattern. Not to say every single stitch isn't important on one of these, but it's even more important because of the if I get a stitch wrong or I use the wrong colour, then the pattern won't work out properly. It just takes that little bit more effort and that little bit more enthusiasm and experience and joy. It's the journey that's so important in something like this. And I really love this kind of knit when I need to just take those extra steps. I need to have something by my side to keep me going. I feel like I'm rambling, but you know what I mean? It's when things like this are happening in the world, something to slow me down, something to rebuild that enthusiasm for creativity can actually really, really help. And it's the small knits this week that have helped so much. It's appreciating every stitch. It's appreciating the journey. It's appreciating how a few small steps can go a big distance. And if you're knitting a scarf, you're going, wow, I've knitted a quarter of the scarf this week. That's made a big difference. I've knitted a half of the scarf this week. That's made a big difference. You can do it with large knits as well. I've knitted half my sleeve. I've knitted a sleeve, that kind of thing. That can make a big difference. So it's the small things. And I think these knits this week have helped me so much. That is what, this wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if I hadn't needed that joy this week. If I hadn't needed some kind of balance to what's happening in the world. Because of lockdown, because of, actually, I'm going to tell you this. On Christmas Eve, I had a major ball. I was crying my eyes out. Brexit was happening, and it felt like a big grieving process. And we'd had so many deaths and new cases that week with the new variant in the UK. It felt like a real grieving process. And Christmas Eve just felt like the time to do it. And it just, we need a balance. And while we can't take away the pain, we can't take away any anger or disappointment or disbelief, we can find joy in our lives as well. So it's just a taking time to say, yes, that's part of my life, but this is part of my life as well. So it's finding a bit of both, and it's just finding that joy. It feels like that's been so important. It was really important in the first lockdown, and it's really important to me now. So I'm so grateful for you joining me this morning, because we can do all of this together. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Let me answer some more questions, because I can see you're all chatting here. Okay. Did I knit my sweater? No, I didn't knit my sweater. Actually, I've got a really chunky frame. That's who I am. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got big swimmer's shoulders and a big boned. That's who I am. And I really, really love very thin knitwear. This would need a machine to knit it, and it would need a maybe a 1.5 or 2 millimeter needle to knit it. So I haven't gone that far and knitted things for myself for actually quite a long time. I knitted DK, which is 4 millimeter needles, jumpers for myself, and they're quite useful. And I still have them, and I still wear them on occasion. But generally speaking, in this phase of my life, I like knitting accessories. Actually, I've always liked knitting accessories. I like creating accessory patterns because it's such a creative thing. And I love creating patterns for knitters who just want an easy knit, who don't want to go so far that it feels difficult. My tagline when I start my videos: learn to knit the easy way. I love making knitting easy. I love bringing that joy into knitting. And sometimes I feel that knitting a jumper while it can be joyful, and I've really enjoyed knitting jumpers in the past, especially for a lot of new knitters, it can be that step where it feels too much. So I haven't knitted jumpers because I've actually got them at the moment that fit me. And I also feel if you knit so much that you've got too much, then you're not being mindful and bringing sustainability into the world. So there's that balance as well. So I've got as many jumpers as I need. So yeah. Okay, so that was a long answer to did you knit your sweater? Okay. I told my daughter I would make scrunchies for gymnastics. That's a good idea. Yes. That is a good idea. But she wasn't impressed. Why not? Honestly. Something uncomfortable and mindful, yes. Joe loves a good ramble. Exactly, yes. It is. It's finding the balance, taking the mind off the worries. I knit until my fingers hurt. I never want to stop. You need the Yoga for Knitters videos. The Yoga for Knitter videos, I've got 4 or 5 of them now in a small playlist. Just do them occasionally while you're knitting. I'm in the UK. So I'm in England. I'm in the south of England. If you know the map very well, I am to the west of London, about an hour's out of London on the train, or even in the car, it's about an hour out of London. So I love knitting here. We've got the countryside and not too many planes overhead. Oh dear. My toy knitting has saved me this week. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Last 4 years, yes. I should think it has. We are thinking of you and praying for you, believe me. Oh dear. Yanvi is new to knitting. Welcome. Hoping to get back into knitting this year after a long break. Cool. That's exciting. It's something that you can pick up and put down. That's what's beautiful about knitting. If you do enough of it, then you can say, actually, I've had enough for 6 months, or I've had enough for a few years, and go and use your creativity with something else. Come back to it, and it feels like a muscle memory. Yes, you have to pick it up and go, can't quite remember how to do that stitch, that stitch, that stitch, and that's what YouTube's for. That's what my courses are for. So, yeah, come back to it, and you'll feel the creativity returning. Jane says, fully with you on knitting small things. Currently knitting baby jumpers as going to be a first-time grandma in June. Oh, that's exciting. That is exciting. Yeah. Oh, baby jumpers are a good way to start knitting jumpers. Certainly. Mishka, my mother bought me my first knitting set when I was 5 years old. Having stopped since I'm now 68. Father Christmas gave me my first knitting kit when I was 4.5. I don't think my mum had anything to do with that. Yanvi, yes. Kit Kat. In our school, once you get to 6th class, they teach you how to knit. Oh, yes. Oh, that's cool. I know I did knitting at Brownies and I did knitting at Guides. I don't think I did it a great deal at school. Yes. Crochet to knitting. Perfect. No problem with that. Oh, yes. I haven't put the lace bookmark pattern in the shop yet. I've got the kit in the shop. I'm only posting at the moment to the UK. Funnily enough, you might be able to gather why that might be. Dear. Oh dear. Joe is peeling potatoes rather than knitting at the moment. You will get back to your needles. You will. And Yanvi is asking how old I am. And I need to actually think about that when I answer that. I'm 45.5. There you go. The half is very important. Yes, Jane did French knitting. Yes, French knitting. I had a French knitting doll all the way through my childhood. I think it was really important just to see those steps, and it helped me understand the stitches more. I actually do have French knitting dolls. That's something I haven't put in my shop yet. So if you do ever want a knitting doll, anybody, then let me know and I can just send it via an PayPal invoice or something. Now that makes me feel old. Yes, okay, I'm your mum's age. James, any favorite online UK yarn shops? Well, mine, you can't miss. You can't go wrong with that. It's the yarn that makes a difference for me, and I use Rowan. And in my shop in February, I will be introducing Wool and the Gang. So Black Sheep Wools is another one if you can't find what you need in my shop. Yes, Black Sheep Wools. I really like Black Sheep Wools. They have got a really good collection. I do have a yarn shop. You want to go to my website, and knitting shop is at the top in the tabs, or go to shop.knitwithhannah.co.uk. We are currently in the phase of recreating my website. So come middle of February this year, it will all be in one place. We had difficulties with where everything is, and it's all been a bit complicated. So the shop will be in a website. The shop will be in my main website, and the courses will be somewhere else. We only have a few things at the moment. I can't store everything. We're in a small bungalow, and I just don't have the storage space for a lot of yarn. But I have this control thing, whereas I choose what yarn I have. So we have Rowan, felted DK. We have Rowan Big Wool. We have Rowan worsted, which is 5mm needles, 4.5mm needles there. We have Rowan alpaca mix, which is a really nice one. Only got 4 colors in that, so let me know if there are any colors that you want, and I can let you know. And like I said, I'm getting some Wool and the Gang yarns in. So that's that. There you go. Yarnby wants us to guess what country you're in. Well, there are about 160 countries in the world, so that could be a long, long conversation. I'm going to guess, because you're up at this time of day, I'm going to guess that you're from Spain. Don't know. Yes, a thicker yarn is really cozy for winter. You're right there. Right, what I'm going to do now, if I can. Oh, dear. I've got my iPad right next to me. It's forgotten my touch password because I haven't used it for so long. Oh, you're from India. Hi there. Oh, fabulous. I'm going to go and have a chat about some of the comments from the last videos. You astounded me with so many comments in the last few videos. I thought this is a perfect thing to chat about. So Wendy says on last week's 10 tips for beginner knitters. Do go and watch that 10 tips for beginner knitters, because it's 10 tips that I've picked up over my lifetime of knitting. Yes, some of them I knew immediately, but it is still something that makes you want to say, if I had known that as a beginner knitter, it would have made it so much easier. That's the thing. It's a funny thing with knitting. There are so many things you could learn, and there are so many stitches you could learn and all that, but it's just the little fiddly things that makes you think, God, if I'd learned that easier, if I'd learned that earlier, life would have been so much easier. So there you go. So Wendy says, my first scarf definitely wasn't perfect. Yeah. Everyone's first knits will you'll see the mistakes. And people outside who have no idea what knitting is won't see the mistakes, and they'll go, wow, you've knitted that? I can't imagine how you did it. Because they won't understand how you use a pair of yarn and a pair of needles. And they can't figure out how you made fabric with it. My first... I can't find it. I've got some of my first knits here. And one of them was where I cut all of the edges. It was striped. I was going to make a hot water cover with it. And all of the stripes had all of the ends of yarn chopped to like a centimetre at the end. And I tied them together in knots. And it was a big mistake. And by the end of it, I didn't want to sew it together and use it because I was really frightened that those stripes were going to just unravel. So that was a big mistake that I made as a beginner knitter. That was so funny. I was proud of myself because the stitches were really neat and the tension was really good and even throughout it. But just making that mistake with the stripes. Oh my goodness, that was so funny. Yes, finishing a row before you put it down. And funnily enough, I have something that I put down yesterday because I needed a new ball of yarn and I was in the right at the end of a row, but not quite. So I have I have 9 stitches on one needle and 100 odd on the other needle. That won't notice so much because it's right by a border and I did that on purpose, but yeah, that is a sneak peek. This is coming in February. That is coming in February, and that is Wool in the Gang yarn. But putting it down halfway through a row means that if you're not at a stage yet where you can look at the yarn, the knitting and go, I understand it, I know where I am, I get where I am, I understand the pattern, I know which way I'm going when I pick it up. All of those little things can make you make mistakes. And then you can unpick it and it will go wrong. So finishing a row when you're knitting can make everything so much easier. So I really do suggest that's a big thing if you want to knit like that. If you want to knit. And this is another reason why I say to beginner knitters, start with a few stitches on your needle rather than a big number of stitches on your needle. Because if you've got fewer stitches on the needle, it is easier to finish that row. It won't feel like such a bind when you have some kind of distraction. You've got to move and do something else, answer a question, figure out some homework with your 16-year-old, or the dinner's ready and the oven bell's going. That's what happened to me yesterday. Like the alarm was going on the oven and Nick was going, are you getting that or am I getting it? And I said, well, I am getting it, but just let it ring for a bit because I need to finish a row. So it's just knowing that you can get to the end of the row without it all collapsing and without it all going wrong. And like with this kind of thing, without you getting lost and really confused about where you are on the pattern. So just be aware of that as well. Finishing the row can be so important. The cup cozy. Oh yes, cup cozy. I would like to find a pattern for a very simple one as I'm a newbie knitter. I have got a cup cozy pattern. So there's one on the Ravelry store and there's one actually in my cable course. So if you'd like to have a look at the cable course, that's a good option because then you are a newbie knitter, but I take you through every single step of every single knit in my knitting courses. So if you are excited about knitting, then certainly you can do cables after you've got to grips with the knit and purl. There's no reason why you can't. The cable course, you can find that at academy.knitwithhannah.co.uk. So that would definitely be an option for you. The other thing you can do is so simply put stitches on your needle, knit until it goes around the cup, and then put a button on the end. You can do that really quite simply. But yes, definitely a mug cozy is a lovely thing to knit for starters. Ken Keller says, I can't put it down if I haven't finished a row just because it feels so wrong. I didn't even think about doing a large blanket. That would make finishing a row take a while. Yeah. It just build up to it. It's 4:45. Oh, right. You are something and a half hours behind us. Ahead of us, yes. I was sitting here thinking, sure, what? If you're in India, then you're ahead, yes. Okay. Jane says, when I picked up knitting again, I found knitting cotton dishcloths really helpful, particularly useful for learning new stitches. Yes, and that's why I love knitting bookmarks as well. You can make a dishcloth with a single ball of yarn that just knit until you're finished. I love that. Michelle, I struggle a little with knitting patterns. I'm a visual learner. Yeah, in that respect, then using video courses would really, really help. And some knitting books over others. This is where you need to get to a bookshop, and we can't really do that yet. Bookshops will show you, if you can kind of browse through one book after another, then the knitting books, some have more visual instructions than others. Some magazines have more visual instructions than others. So it's just figuring out what works for you. And obviously YouTube is obviously a great way to start as well. But just going through one step at a time, definitely. It can be really helpful to do courses, because then you get that confidence, and you can read patterns alongside the videos, and then that can really, really help as well. Mijka, I'm 3/4 through knitting a jacket, and the more I do it, the more I hate it. Oh no. Oh dear. Time to start unraveling and storing the wool for something else. Yes. This is what we talked about in the New Year video as well. If you get to a point in a video, in a pattern where you say, I've had enough, I cannot knit any more of this, then put it down. Making a decision is better than letting it sit there in the corner in a bag and fester, because you will know that sitting there. It will be like a little gremlin on your shoulder going, you haven't finished knitting that, have you? And it will really grate on your mind, and every time you see it there, it will just go, oh, I can't bear the thought of it. So make a decision. Yes or no. That's what you want, not a sitting on the fence kind of thing. I'm going to give you a round of applause. You're going to unravel and store the wool. Congratulations, you've made a decision. Oh dear. Yanvi is eating snacks. Good for you. I know, I haven't got a biscuit. I didn't finish my breakfast that long ago. I had a late breakfast this morning. It was more of a brunch, so I'm just having a cuppa. Wama Podi. Oma Podi. I can't speak this morning. Oma Podi. Kankala says, I think learning to crochet first helped me pick up knitting a bit easier. Yeah. One of the biggest problems for a lot of knitters is Oma Podi. There you go. One of the biggest problems for knitters is holding the yarn alongside the needles. So if you've already been holding the yarn with a crochet hook, you are halfway there. It's getting used to manipulating the yarn, getting used to the tension, getting used to asking it to do what you want rather than getting in a knot and really confusing you. So yeah. It's why sometimes. I've had in the last few weeks, because a lot of people are picking up knitting around Christmas and the middle of winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. One thing that I'm getting in quite a few comments is, I can't do this, it's really scary. Watch out for that in this week's video. So you just need to take it that step back. If there's ever part of knitting that you can't do, just think, what's the step before this? What is it that's really confusing me that I could practice just in a smaller way? And a lot of that is, if you can't knit, it's because you can't manipulate the needles. You can't get it to do what you want. And it's literally just using the hands. It's literally the muscle memory. It's literally the connection between the brain and the hands. What's that called? Motor skills. So learning to use the hands together with the yarn can be a big part of it. French knitting can really help. Crochet can help. Even just sitting there and weaving, making tassels, making pom-poms can help. So just see that as part of it as well. Using yarn can really, really help. I'm getting used to it. Mishka, the only bit I hate is stitching it all together. There are lots of ways that you can find patterns that actually just reduce the amount of stitching. So that's something to look out for. There are books out there that will say no seam jumpers and all that kind of stuff. So I really like stitching stuff together. It's because I've always liked sewing. I can't do a lot of sewing because of the way my fingers were made. It's like I get, if you've watched the different ways of holding the needles, different styles of knitting, I can't think what it's called, where I just show you different ways of knitting. My thumb hasn't got that joint in it. It's got the joint, but it isn't pronounced. So I struggle with different knitting holds. I can't hold both of them from above. My fingers just won't do that. I get real bad cramps in my thumb. The same thing with sewing. So I can't do a lot of sewing, and I can't do a lot of crochet because that involves a lot of movement with my thumb as well. So I love sewing. I've always loved sewing. I've always loved embroidery, but I can't do it over a long period. So that's why I love sewing up knitting pieces, because it means that it just gives me that extra spice that I'm looking for. So that's who I am. I love knit. I love knitting so I can then sew the pieces together. Ah, dear. Athena's from Spain. Hi, Athena. We aren't under lockdown at the moment, but we advise to avoid going out except when necessary. Bad weather, so it's easy to follow. Yeah. Nick does his daily walk. I'm shielding. I'm inside. My daily exercise is on the yoga mat. Thank you very much. And he's getting frustrated when he goes out and he goes, oh, I need my wet weather coat. Oh, it's pouring with rain. It's horrible. Oh, dear. Joe says, oh, I'm always told I don't hold the yarn right, but it works for you. Exactly. I get frustrated with that. You're doing it differently. Well, that's not right. There isn't a right. We're all perfect. And it works. It doesn't matter. Yarn tension was biggest issue with crochet. We finally got that down. Now I need to figure out a comfy tension hold with knitting in my right hand. Yeah. You'll find what's right for you. No problem. Yes. Oh dear. Yeah. It is really difficult, Kankala, with a large country like that. It can't be easy. I mean, obviously the White House at the moment isn't the best of White House stuff, let's say. But if you're not in lockdown, it's got to be statewide, hasn't it? Oh dear. Australia seems to have done it well, and that's done with provinces. Oh dear. Jane, being galvanized, got a lightweight summer top using Lion Brand shawl in a ball that's been sitting in a plastic bag for at least 2 years, unraveling it at the weekend. Yes. Good. Sounds good. Yeah. Joe hates the knit sewing. Athena likes the sewing and loves crocheting. She can't knit though. What are you watching this for then? Oh dear. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else is watching from India. It's a right time of the afternoon for you, though. Just you've had an interesting day and now you're here. I tried knitting like you, but I couldn't do the stretch over the needle that way. I do overhand. There you go. Perfect. Whatever works for you is right. What temperature is it in the UK right now? It's cold. Yeah, for the last few days it's been near freezing. But it's 5 or 6 degrees Celsius about, I think, today. But will be increasing next week. Debbie's a visual learner. So am I. I definitely need that. And I need that in the old days when I was learning in the 80s. That was through library books. And the good library books that had brilliant illustrations, I'd get them out, take them back, she'd stamp them, and I'd have them again. I'd have them for months on end. Oh dear. I don't hold my yarn the right way, but you can control the tension usually. You see, there is no right way. Yeah. While watching, you're crocheting a square for a cowl, ignoring the part of started projects. Yes. Blinkers on. Oh, that's nice. 28 degrees Celsius. Actually, that's too hot for me. I'd be sweating like buckets. Oh, no. A cowl is a crochet along. This year, I'm hoping to do some knit alongs, which is a cal again, but it's a K-A-L. Hoping to do some of them this year. First one I'm hoping will be at the end of February, and we'll do that. Oh no, is that cold for you? Couldn't bear that. When we get above 24 or 25, I'm hibernating most of the time in the summer. I can't cope if it's warmer than that. If it's a dry heat, then it's easier, but I cannot do a wet heat, definitely. Heirloom Afghan. Oh, possibly look out for that kind of thing next year. I can't promise that yet, but this is some kind of hint for what's coming in February. Oh dear. Let me have a look at any more of these comments that we had. Yes, the end stitch. That's really interesting about the stitch at the end of the row, because it looks too big, doesn't it? When you're knitting, it just looks like it's not the right thing. It looks like it's too big at the end of the row. But there are lots of ways that you can rectify it, by slipping it, by making an I-cord edging. So many different things you can do with it. I'm perfectly happy to knit it, and then 2 or 3 rows up, you don't notice there's a problem. So if you fiddle with it, go and watch that video, the 10 tips video, and you'll see my thoughts on it. There can be too much fuss made about it. And I would say just recognize that it's the same as every other stitch on the row. It's only because it's at the end of the row that it looks too big. So yeah, don't worry about that. Let me see if I can find the comments for the previous video. Because it's here somewhere. We were talking about New Year's resolutions. Actually, have you had any New Year's resolutions? Have you come up with anything you want to do this year? It is 11:30 here. Okay. Everyone was talking about the Harry Potter book. It's an amazing book. Cara, who you saw earlier, the Hooting Pirates here on YouTube, gave me that for Christmas. She knows I love Harry Potter. There she is. She found it and said, I know who needs that. But yes. There's so much in it. The Cornish pixie. Let me see. You see, I do have a Harry Potter. I have a Harry jumper. I walk around in it and it's the Harry jumper. My sister got me that. She lives in Edinburgh and there is a Harry Potter shop in Edinburgh and she found it in there for me. So I couldn't say no. There is so much in here. So much that I couldn't show you everything. What else? Oh yes, here we go. The sorting hat hanging display, which looks like it's a mobile for kids, but it's actually just described as a decoration. It's basically the different symbols for the different houses. So we've got the Gryffindor lion, Ravenclaw jumper, the Ravenclaw badger, Hufflepuff raven. Is that no? It's the wrong way around. You know what I mean. The snake for Slytherin, and then we've got the sorting hat. So that's quite cool. That would be nice quick knits if you'd like something like that. But yes, quite a few of you were saying, I want that, I want that, I want that book. But like I said, there's quite a lot in here that would be simple to knit. And beginner's knits. And then you can move on as you learn more and pick out something else from it and knit that. So this kind of book, you just have to make sure as you pick it out that there are beginner knits in it. Because even people like me, I would love a beginner knit occasionally. I love knitting something that's simple occasionally. Just because I don't want to sit and focus so much on my knitting that Nick and I can't watch something on Netflix at the same time. So, you know what I mean. Yeah, Harry Potter. We have to do something in that. Right. Athena says, Spanish Yarn Brand posted 10 New Year's resolution. I've already broken 3 of them, including buying yarn. Well, buying yarn is fine, as long as you use it. As long as you got an end goal for it. Ken Cutler says, to-do list is a poncho. Easter table runner. That sounds cool. Some kind of multi-square Afghan. Yes, I enjoy knitting things while watching a movie. Something with rhythm, and that's relaxing. I realised I got an email yesterday from Netflix, as you do. They've put Bridget Jones' Diary on. I've got to go and watch that. I haven't seen that for years. How long have I been knitting? 41 years. That's funny. Does squishing the yarn count as using it? In my book, yes. What am I watching on Netflix? We've seen The Queen's Gambit. We managed to catch that early on. We're actually watching quite a bit on BBC iPlayer at the moment. We've been watching Torchwood. We went all the way through Doctor Who again because we hadn't gone through the Peter Capaldi's years again because we'd seen them so recently. But we went through the whole lot again. What else have we been watching on? We've been watching Monty Python. Been watching Monty Python on Netflix. We just finished Bridgerton. So, yes, quite a lot. Oh, dear. Addicted to buying yarn if there's no plans for it. Okay. There's only so much you can buy without using it. Okay. What's the difference between a ball and a skein? Oh, fabulous question. All right. So a ball of yarn is just ready for you to use. A skein is twisted up yarn that you have to unravel, and it's in a big circle. Then you have to wind it up into a ball, and you have to use something like this. There you go. So you get your ball of yarn, your skein of yarn, and you wind it all the way around this. Come on, there you go. You wind it all the way around that. And from here, you can then untwist it and roll it into a ball yourself. You could get mechanical things that wind yarn into a ball, or you can do it by hand. So I tend to do it with my hand, winding it like that, and I quite like that. But for so many years, I have made myself only buy balls. And this is because I have 2 health conditions, and it just means that I've got to wait longer and longer before I start knitting. Yes, it is a lovely part of the process, and it's part of the journey, but it can actually stop you from knitting. And if that's going to stop you from knitting because it's sat there in a skein, then don't wait. Buy a ball of yarn instead. There are replacements out there. If you looking at skeins and you say, oh, I've got to wind that into a ball, you will find a ball that's very similar. So just allow yourself that. If you're not ready and you're not willing to go that extra step, then you can just buy balls. I love Doctor Who. Yeah, me too. How many stitches do I cast on for a blanket? Oh my goodness, that is a big question. It really does depend on the yarn, how big you want the blanket. It would depend on so much. Look on the ball of yarn that you're using. It will tell you how many stitches you need for every 10 centimeters. Then you can calculate how many you need. So depending on how wide you want your blanket, you will know how many stitches. Yarn V is 12 and goes crazy for knitting. Good for you. Bridgerton, yes. Good looking actors. Oh, is that why you're watching it? Jan V. Okay, Jan V. I have got a Harry Potter wand. Yes, that's very true, Kankala. Very true. Athena says, I have a lot of skeins for when I was subscribed to Knit Crate. Oh, right. Yes, that's a good idea. You can pause those things, can't you? So yeah, good idea. It's time for 2 cabinets. Oh dear, Janvi's missed a class. Apologies for pronouncing your name wrong. Sorry about that. You better go back to class. Thank you for joining us. How many stitches for a baby blanket? Again, it will depend on the yarn, and it will depending on how big you want the baby blanket. For me, if it's an Aran yarn, I use about 100 stitches, but it will depend on the pattern. It really do a little square to find out how many you need, and you'll work out how many, what your tension is, what pattern you're using. It could be about 100, it could be about 150, depending on the yarn that you're using. Janvi, oh, the class is over. Okay, right. Bye, Janvi. Nice to see you. Kankala, it will depend on the stitch you use sometimes. Yes, totally. Because, I mean, moss stitch, you will squash the rows together, and that will take much longer to knit, many more rows to knit. So, find a pattern as well. The other option is to find a pattern. So, in case you hadn't guessed, baby blankets will be appearing in February. Get excited. Athena is getting used to making swatches before I actually start knitting a project. Yeah, that's good. If you're knitting something that really does depend on size, then knitting a swatch can be really important. This conversation will end while it ends. I was planning to go for an hour, so we've got 5 minutes. You know, that's a good idea. Baby blanket for the dog. Yeah, not a bad idea at all. So right, so Sharon says, this is the New Year's one. I'm going to concentrate on knitting a few repeatable items over the next 3 months to sell. That's something else that, especially if you're in lockdown and it all feels a bit too much, knitting repeatable items can be a big help. Knitting items that you've knitted before. If you have patterns sitting around and I love knitting that first time, knit it again. Just knit it again, because it can really, really help. It just feels easy. You're used to the needle size, you're used to the yarn, you're used to the pattern or the cable, and you're used to any shaping. Just feels like a comfort. So I do that. If I need something that's comforting, that is just, it feels like home, I knit a pair of fingerless mitts and I give them to someone for Christmas. I will knit a baby hat because I love knitting hats. So it's just something like that can be really comforting in lockdown. It can be really, really helpful. Don't know how to make a swatch, says Rebecca McDonald. Okay. Whatever your yarn says. For example, this one says somewhere, I can't see it, 22 stitches for 10 centimeters. So cast on about 35 or 40 stitches, knit a stocking stitch, which is knit 1 row, purl 1 row, knit 1 row, purl 1 row, knit for about 35 rows, yes, because that's 29 rows, and then measure your 10 centimeter square in it. Do you have 22 stitches to your 10 centimeters? And do you have 29 rows to your 10 centimeters? That will tell you whether you're knitting on tension, whether that's right. And the beauty of that is that if you're on par, if you're right, you can actually unravel that and then start knitting, because it will show you that your tension is fine. You can unravel that, use that same yarn to start knitting your piece. I'm not that bothered about a lot of swatches for the things that I knit. A lot of the things that I knit aren't necessarily needed. They're not dependent on size. So that's fine I don't do a lot of swatches. If I was doing really complicated jumpers and such like, then I probably would. Cardigans, that kind of thing, I probably would be doing more swatches. So yeah, just it's something like that to just give you a clue about whether you are knitting far too loose or far too tight, or that perfect Goldilocks in the middle. There we go. We have about 2 minutes left, ladies. Joe's excited because of the baby blankets, I think. Can I do Fair patterns for hats? There are some Fair patterns for hats in my Ravelry store, but they're baby hats. I certainly can do Fair patterns for hats, definitely. Jane's got an order already from her son for the blanket for the baby. It's a good job the baby's not due until June. Yeah, an heirloom baby blanket might take a while. Oh, yes, there you go. Mum told me she will buy me the whole set of knitting if I get full marks in all exams. There you go. Janvi, go for it. Just don't miss any more lessons. Oh dear. Right. I'm finding more and more patterns now. I use circular needles. Yes. Classic needle knit, I was struggling to use the circular ones and the wires. Yeah. There are more patterns using circular needles, very definitely. I do have a course about using circular needles. It's called Circle Skills Workshop. It's about an hour long with lots of different patterns in it, lots of different videos rather. So you can certainly go and have a look at that. I don't make a fuss when I use circular needles. You can really get focused and use the right size for the right item and everything. But I use the same method for everything I knit on circular needles. Don't worry about it. So if you want to go and have a look at that, that's on the Academy as well. academy.knitwithhannah.co.uk. There are yeah, I do not like to use circular knitting needles. I like to use the straight needles. The one, I'm using straight needles to knit my baby blankets, and that's over 100 stitches. The thing is that I've actually got circular needles on order, so I can attempt and I can try them out on something like this, that kind of thing. So that's an option. You can use circular needles for flat knitting as well. I'm here, Joe. Vicky likes knitting Chiagu circulars. Never heard of them before. Straight project on circular needles. Yeah, it's perfectly viable. Yeah. Right, I've got to go. It's an hour now. I really do have to go. And I do want to mention, if you are a beginner knitter, even if you're not a beginner knitter, come and join me. I've got a workshop on the 16th. That's Saturday afternoon. So Janvi, for you, that would be in the evening. And it's going to be, I think it's 3:15 on Saturday afternoon, the 16th of January. It's not here. It's elsewhere. You've got to go and sign up for it. So what you need to sign up for is that. There you go. So that's, do go and sign up for that if you would like to join me for that. It will be in the morning, Reba, for Kentucky. That is a full workshop giving you steps to take to help you find more confidence as a beginner knitter. That is going to help you, because one of the biggest problems as a beginner knitter is finding that confidence. Go and find all the information there for that. knitwithhannah.co.uk/BEG, that's beginners, BEG-workshop. That will help you. Okay, I will be back next week with another lockdown knitting. This isn't just one. There you go. I'm not sure what you want me to do, Janvi. You can come to it anyway if you want to, Reba. I don't mind. And I will be back next week with another lockdown knitting. So I'm not sure whether it will be Thursday or Friday. I'm hoping it will be Friday, same time again, same time next week. We need this. We need to keep each other going. So there you go. Sorry, Janvi, I don't know what you want me to do. I'll see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Stay safe. Stay home. Happy knitting.